I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have several here today that would like to offer public comments, so we'll get there as quick as we can. Quick introductions. To my far left, Director Rickert. To my immediate left, thank you, Christopher Pash, Commissioner. Court boys here. To my right, John Herzog, Commissioner. To his right, County Counsel John Huddle. To his right, Staff Jesuit. Line of duty casualty report. Folks, if you don't mind, I'm going to skip one more meeting. The numbers aren't good, but they're probably a little bit better than anticipated. This is a letter that from Beth Barker Hidalgo that's kind of is a very nice approach that she asked to have read last meeting, which was the 20th of January, and we didn't get a chance to do that. So I'd like the okay with the board to read this letter. I think you got a copy too, Commissioner. Maybe all three of us did. Hello, Commissioners. I'm emailing you today in the hopes that my comments will be entered into the record at today's BOC meeting. The Curry Homeless Coalition received a call from Sheriff's Dispatch in Gold Beach yesterday morning, which, by the way, that would have been January 19th, Tuesday. The dispatcher asked for support for a pregnant mom with a 2-year-old. The family had driven to Curry in the wee hours of the morning as Dad had a court appearance. To the shock of the family, the dad was arrested right there in court and taken into custody. Mom had no means to support her family with an overnight stay in Curry County, and she didn't want to travel back to the Rogue Valley, only to return the following day. The coalition booked a motel room for the family, providing peace of mind for Mom while she waited to hear when Dad would be released. I'm writing to you today to share our appreciation for the dispatcher who thought to give us a call. We welcome referrals from all partner agencies. That's a tough chair over there. We promise we did not set you up for that, Bob.
Yep. Hello.
We've got to move that chair. I'm sorry, guys. He's couldn't happen to a better guy. I want to read that part again, if you don't mind, Board. I'm writing to you today to share our appreciation for the dispatcher who thought to give us a call. We welcome referrals from all partner agencies. I'm hopeful this is a shift in our community that is most welcome and desperately needed. This family did not experience a night on the streets, sleeping in their vehicles, subject to a citation, if within the city limits, and worse. Mom, Dad, baby, and 2-year-old will head home today. That was the 20th, Wednesday, safe and sound, back home. Dad was released yesterday afternoon. We want to acknowledge the Sheriff's Department staff for reaching out to the Curry Homeless Coalition for support. When we work together to address social needs, families, individuals, and veterans experience far less trauma and stress, which allows space for recovery, healing, and stability. Beth Barker Hidalgo, Director, Curry Homeless Coalition. Thank you, Board. And thank you, Beth. And thank you, Curry County Sheriff's Department. So I will have a report on the line of duty desk from firefighters, military, and police officers, law enforcement officers on our next meeting, which is right now scheduled to be the 17th. So, Board, any amendment, approval, changes to the agenda? Chair, Commissioner Pash?
Thank you, Chair. I have a few. First, I'd like to add to the consent agenda M, which is appointment to the Budget Committee, Mr. Douglas Baker from North County. I would also like to add into executive session, make sure we're covered. I see consider employment of a public officer. We also need to talk about the payroll audit and that hiring or contracting of a person in there. So I just want to make sure that from County Council that we're covered under that.
Is that an executive session?
Yes, sir.
That's a public officer.
Okay.
Or a hiring of an agent.
And I'd also like to talk about a public officer leaving under executive session.
Okay.
And make sure we're covered for that, Council.
Well, are you going to talk about hiring the replacement of that leaving
Yes,
person?
we are.
Then
Yes.
that would be
Okay.
the hiring of a... yeah.
Wanted to make sure legally we were
We're all
okay.
going to have to itemize that, so I have a good, clear sequence that we need.
Okay.
You added Douglas Baker to the consent agenda. Aren't we required to put out an RFP for applicants before we decide on somebody almost overnight?
It's not necessarily a requirement. They are supposed to fill out an application. So I think if I'm not mistaken, our board vacancies are posted on our website, and then from there, people are directed to fill out an application.
Yes.
And then once we get an application, we can appoint. There's no, more requirement to advertise than what we're doing.
And we have his application, so the board knows.
Yeah, I just got one on my desk, thank you. I'm going to impose that only because it hasn't even been 24 hours since we've contacted and this is a North County rep, correct?
Yes,
Okay?
but it's been out there for months.
No, it hasn't officially been notified. We've talked about it a lot in different board meetings, but no, we have not sent out publicly, to my knowledge, representing that we are going to have new budget committee positions open, specifically for Central Curry and North County. Am I wrong on that?
I didn't want to comment on that. I just wanted to comment at the particular place that this item was proposed to be on the agenda, which would be consent. And typically, if you were anticipating a no vote to that item on consent, you might not put it on consent if there's a motion to change the agenda.
Well, because we had already approved him as a treasurer, I really wasn't anticipating a no vote as a budget committee member, so should we move it then to 7H?
Does the board feel we need further discussion, or we just need to take a couple days to assess where we are on this and see if there are other applicants out there? And I'm certainly not opposed to Mr. Baker.
I'd like to go ahead and have it move it to 7H then, and we can discuss it there, and if we can find an agreement, we can vote on it then.
Thank you. I'm in agree with
It
that.
could still happen today?
Yes.
Any other changes to the consent agenda or additions? Commissioner Herzog, no?
No, sir.
Council, anybody else? Director Ricker? I only had one thing, and that was on the resolution setting supplemental county fees and public comment. I was talking to staff Jesuit about this the other day, and should that have read, instead of public hearing, should that have been a public notice, Council Huddle? Not trying to split hairs here, but it was just a little bit confusing.
Good. So what the law says, anytime prior to us raising fees, we're supposed to have an opportunity for public comment. And the way we've traditionally done that when we do fees is we have a public hearing. So that should be set for public hearing. I think the other matter on public hearing was about the transit district.
Excuse me, yes.
And that one was technically only to take public comments as of February 1st. And there's kind of a mix-up. I've got some email back and forth between me and John Jesuit to actually take that off the agenda. So that, unless there's someone here to talk about that item particularly, you can check the comment cards. That item can certainly be just removed from the agenda.
If you don't mind, I'll do that real fast. No, so you have the floor, Council Huddle.
No, that's it. The time for receiving those comments was February 1st. We advertised that. The comments were supposed to come to my office. Hadn't received any. And, during the agenda workup, JJ said, do you want this on the agenda? And I said, oh, you're right. No, we don't. But it stayed on there for some reason. So we can just take that off, please.
Where
Much appreciated.
It should be the second item under public hearing.
Go to the back page.
8B, yeah.
Okay.
And then for the board, on the executive session, we're going to have a call-in from outside counsel, and I was hoping, they wanted a time certain. I said 2 o'clock. I'm hoping we can get to the executive session by 2 o'clock, but if the board thinks it would be a different time, let me know, and I'll email outside counsel and say so.
But that's 50 minutes, right?
Yeah.
It's 50 minutes from now. Do you think we should go 3 o'clock?
Yeah, how much
2:30?
trouble to change that time?
I think I can just send an email. You have a,
Excuse me? I'm sorry.
I've got someone coming to possibly speak in executive session about the audit process, so, and I told them about 3:15.
Yeah, an hour meeting is
right.
is a nice goal, but I don't,
good, so 3:30 perhaps?
at least 3:30 in my
Okay.
view.
Well,
We may
very good.
have to shut down and come back, which is not a big deal.
No, that's okay, good.
Yeah.
I'll email and let them know.
Thank you. Looking for a motion, gentlemen.
So moved, Chair.
Second?
Any more discussion? Roll call, please, Mr. Jesuit.
Mr. Pash,
Aye.
Vice Chair Herzog,
Yes.
Chair Boyce,
Yes.
motion carried unanimously.
Public comments, please. We have first Mary Rowe. Housing shortage. Ms. Rowe, I sure appreciate your handwriting, by the way. It's so easy to read and
I scrolled that quickly. Thank
very
you.
nice. And I've saved all of your letters over the years.
Oh, no.
Well, no, they're terrific content. Thank you.
Thanks for the warning. So I'm sorry I look like hell, but I was in the dental chair all morning and never got to see the dentist, even though I made the appointment 3 months in advance.
Oh.
I have a tooth in pain, so I'm in bad shape here. I wasn't
How can we help you? Can we hand those out? We'll do it for you.
Okay.
This is a death notice, gentlemen.
Death notice.
And I want you to understand, I mean, it's a death notice. I got it today. I got back from the dentist. And that's why I'm here. So, thank you for telling me I could have an extra minute, Chair Boyce. I
Certainly.
didn't write something like I always do because I wasn't anticipating speaking today because I was at the dentist until I got that notice. This is the second one I've gotten in a year and a quarter because we have a new owner. It took me a year to fight off the old owner for under fair housing for giving me one of those because I was the only tenant who got it. And they want me out because I'm allergic to paint. And I asked for a reasonable accommodation for low VOC paint with me paying the difference. So now we have a new manager, a new owner, and I guess I have to spend, I have to try to save my life again because we have no housing. So I wanted you to know, so I decided to share some details about my own situation with you as well as tell you about some other people. When I was fighting the last eviction, I had to go send some paperwork, a bunch of it real quickly, and I wasn't well enough. And accordingly, I fell on my knee, cracked my kneecap, fell on my 8 front teeth first, and I've spent thousands of dollars dealing with all that. I'm not eligible for Oregon Health Plan. I have, Medicare Advantage plan. And my dog died because I could not deal with everything. I didn't notice soon enough that he had kidney disease. And I now have a sick indoor cat who won't live more than a year, according to the vet, who's on medication. I'm scheduled for eye surgery. This eye is now gone, okay? Because I couldn't have the eye surgery before because I was fighting. I'm trying to save this eye, and it's going to take months, and I won't be able to do this because of this eviction. I have surgery scheduled for other parts of my body, dental work, everything. I won't be able to do any of that, okay, because of this. There's no place for me to go, and I mean no place. We don't have our safety nets like before. We don't have the motels, the state parks, a shelter. We have nothing. So legal aid doesn't come down here anymore. I can't email. Fair housing is practically impossible to deal with anymore. I don't know how on earth I'm going to do this. I don't know if I can do it. So I wanted you to know that there are other people. As of 2 months ago, I counted the 50th person that I was aware of in Curry County who has died due to homelessness. And I have not been counting the past 2 years since Beth has taken over, doing the homeless gig, but I just happened to know this person. So I'm sure there's other people who died during the past couple years. I wanted to tell you about a couple of these people. Lincoln Samuel Peck. I met Lincoln Samuel Peck on Christmas in 2009. He was a sergeant in the Air Force with an honorable discharge. Very polite, intelligent, good-looking. He had developed what he said was social phobic disorder. He could not be around people anymore because of his service. And this is before we had VASH vouchers. So like the rest of us, he had to wait, a year or more to get a voucher, and he had no place to go. I gave him my heater so he could, hang on to that, plug it in at the state parks until his money ran out there, and dry his sleeping bag. He did something intentionally wrong just to get into our jail, and then begged them not to release the, well, it looks like I have 26 seconds. So do you want to hear this or not? Okay. I think, I'm wondering if it went on when I was up there. When I was passing out papers, I don't know.
We'll give you some more time. It's fine.
Thank you. So he went into the jail intentionally. It was during the winter. He asked to stay there. They said no. The Lions gave him a motel room for a couple nights, and then what Lincoln did, he was outside. He couldn't be around people that much. He tried to go to the mission. He couldn't do it because he couldn't be around people. He had earned a living until this point. He did all the right things. He went to CCH to get mental health help. He applied for benefits. He did everything right. And then he went out on the highway. He turned his hoodie backwards so that it was over his face by kissing rock to kill himself, okay? And so not only I went to get the information to make a cross for him from the Gold Beach Police Department, and when I found out his birthday, it affected me even more because he and I have the same birthday. Ralph Merritt. Ralph Merritt, born and raised here on Gardner Ridge, he was my landlord. He was the first person who gave me a place to live in South County. I was his caretaker / paying tenant in my trailer on his 20 acres, okay, up Wild Blackberry. You know where that is.
I went to school with Ralph.
You know Ralph. Okay, so I loved Ralph, okay? He had some problems. He used some drugs at one point, drank. His fishing boat that belonged to him and his brother, you may know this, in Charleston, sank, okay? In order to pay, to support himself after that sank, he then sold his property for a quarter of what it was worth because he had to sell it quickly. At that point, he got diagnosed with cancer. Ralph was about my age, by the way, a couple years younger. And he couldn't work anymore. He applied for benefits. He hadn't yet to get them. He moved into his beloved El Camino station wagon that he loved so much. 2 days before he died, the police contacted him and said, "Are you okay, Ralph?" They all knew him since he'd been a fisherman in that area where he was camping in his El Camino. And he said, "No." He said, "Some guys came and they took my wallet and my medication yesterday." Okay, I don't believe it was a coincidence that a man whose nickname was River Rat, because he could swim so well, the next day after the police talked to him, drowned in the river. I believe Ralph killed himself. Okay, he was my friend. He was Janice Payne, you know her cousin. Andy Paul had a job, born and raised in Brookings. He was living in Gold Beach on the beach out of a really nice driftwood house he built for himself, went to work every morning at 8 o'clock. I saw him when he walked his dog, and he had just signed up to get back into rehab, but he was working even though he was using drugs a little bit at that time. And we had no showers. He went to wash off in the ocean. There was a freak wave. It took Andy away, and he died. And he was very loved in South County. Did you know Andy Paul? Okay. So I was going to tell you about some more people, but since my time is out, I just want you to know that this committee, the Housing Committee, needs to get started. And I wanted to read you one sentence from Julie about her intent. She said, Umpqua is no different from you. They are a member and not in charge. Okay, this is from Julie. And,
Julie who?
Former Director Julie Schmilzer.
Okay, thank you.
Sent
I
to me 3
assume.
days ago. And I want you to know that the Suicide Prevention Committee takes their own minutes. They set their own agendas. They give them to JJ and type them up themselves. JJ posts them, and they tell them their agenda about a week ahead of time, I think Gordon said, and JJ posts that. We can do the same thing. We do not need a staff person. And NeighborWorks, this is the last thing I'm going to say. NeighborWorks, I spoke to an insider the other day, a high-level person. They have 3 people leaving. They have all kinds of internal problems. And I think they are just, I think their motivation at this point is at least partially to simply exploit us. So I would like to see this be a citizen-driven committee. George and I have been trying for 12 years to bring some housing. Please, I support anything that former Commissioner George Rhodes says to you about the structure of this committee. We need to get going. This is an emergency. If you had a fire, you would jump on it right now. And this may not be as evident, but I promise you, if I end up dead, you will notice it. And you, Commissioner Herzog, already know some of these people who have died. Thank you.
Mary, thank you very much. We'll be anxious to see how things turn out for you. Thanks for coming here today. I've rearranged the public comment slips. Normally we wouldn't do that, would be on who submitted first. However, we'll hopefully stay on task here. So George Rhodes, if you don't mind, I'd like to call you up next. Your topic is Housing Committee. Please.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate you and the board taking time to allow me to address you today regarding the Housing Committee. You have been getting emails from me. I think I've tried to CC everyone, not always successful. Commissioner Herzog, yours got bounced back to me for some reason. Don't think I put the address in quite right.
It's all right.
You know, I'm trying to update my computer system so I can just speak to it, and unfortunately, it hasn't gotten used to my voice yet. So the reason I'm here today is, as Mary said, I have some concerns about the Housing Committee. I've been appointed to that committee, and my concerns are because this has been a long-going situation for Curry County that we're not meeting the expectations of the citizens nor of some of the people that are on the board, or on the committee, I'm sorry. I would like to suggest that we have a meeting of this committee without any other outside members that have been appointed, i.e. the Umpqua, the Umpqua folks. And the reason for that is because I don't see this committee being functional until it has an organizational meeting. In that we need to have a meeting, we need to appoint a chair, we need to appoint a vice chair, or elect them. And also, as Ms. Rowe said, I would suggest that rather than have a staff member utilizing funds from the county to take our notes, that we be allowed to take our own minutes and put those, give those to Staff Jesuit to keep the public and the board informed as to what the position of the committee is. Again, I know that this has been ongoing for a long time. When I served county, we had a housing committee, and it wasn't very functional, and unfortunately we failed to take steps to ensure that we were able to provide some affordable housing for our citizens of our county, and that's one of the reasons why I volunteered for this committee. I'd like to move it forward. I'd like to make sure that we take our time, and when we do have a meeting, make it so that we can accomplish something. I don't have the time nor the energy to be a part of a committee that just frankly meets and gets nothing accomplished. So I appreciate any advice that you could put forth, or any recommendations. And as I said, I would like to see a meeting as soon as possible. at least an organizational meeting of this committee, we could certainly meet in the Blue Room, and I would make myself available anytime for that meeting. Thank you.
George, do you have any questions?
No.
This is your committee.
It's my committee?
Well, I mean, I think the timing of it was very good, but it has been 5 or 6 weeks since is that right? At least a month?
I just agreed to do this last week, actually, 2 weeks ago, 10 days ago.
It was your agenda item when we decided to have this committee.
Yes, I know,
Okay.
but I'm just saying, what I'm saying is I'm willing to be on the committee itself also to help that along if they want me there. And let's get this thing moving.
So with that interest, thank you. There's an urgency. I mean,
Absolutely.
the amount of information that's out there that this county has compiled over the years is, well, it's disheartening, but it's also encouraging. There's a lot of work that could be connected to that past history. I know you're very well of that. Connie Hunter, Beth Barker Hidalgo, Diana Cooper, Michelle Carroll, I mean, the veterans housing. We're not powerless to get something done. And so I understand there's some frustration, some disappointments. And so what I'm asking the board, next Wednesday's the 10th. We don't have to meet on a Wednesday as far as that goes. We can meet any day. But how can we help get ideas together here, pull everyone together? Brookings is, some ways, is a little behind us, some ways considerably ahead. And so how do we pool resources, pool ideas, and shoulder up and get it done? Does the board have any specific time frame, ideas, approaches they want to pursue or promote today? I don't mean to put anybody on the spot. You're next.
If I
Go.
might, Commissioner,
Yes.
As I said, you've appointed a committee. Let us do our work.
Yeah.
Let us have a meeting and establish the roles of the members of that meeting. We need a chair, we need a vice chair, we need a secretary, and let us get going. I mean, then we can come to the board and say, these are the things that we need for someone to help contribute to our committee. There's been a ton of work done on this. There just hasn't been any action taken, or limited action, no results. And it's time to stop that. We don't need another meeting to sit down and discuss Umpqua Works or Coos County. We need to focus on Curry County. We need to solve our problems right here in our own hometown backyard. And we don't need somebody from the outside to do that. We have plenty of experts in our community, if they're at the table, that can make something happen here. You just mentioned a bunch of those names. Some of the folks I see on this committee certainly have been involved in this for a number of years, all the way back to prior to even my being a county commissioner in 2009.
Yeah.
So I know that we have the resources to move this thing forward. We've just been wasting a lot of time. And having another meeting on the 19th, to me, that's 2 weeks. That's a waste of 2 weeks of time for me. And as I said, I guess when you reach 70, time becomes more valuable to you. And I'd like to move this thing forward as soon as possible.
Well, I honestly thought you were much younger, but I appreciate that very much.
Well, I'm a handsome devil, I know.
You
But
definitely are. But I'm
I'm
going
old,
to
Commissioner.
interpret that you don't need us to do anything right now. You're going to organize. Excuse me. Go ahead, Council Huddle.
If I could,
Certainly.
I know Commissioner Rhodes mentioned that he'd send emails to a lot of folks. I think I saw some of them, and maybe Director Rickert saw some too, but my understanding is that we have staff, which is our Community Development Director, Planning Director, I think Becky Crockett is the staff, and from what I saw, she was reluctant to have a meeting without the housing coordinator. Commissioner Boyce, you were on the housing task force out of the Economic Development Department when that came, and you spoke very highly of the housing coordinator and the function and the value there. And I think that's what Becky Crockett felt the same way. And she did. My understanding is she was reluctant to start a meeting without a knowledgeable housing coordinator. And I know Julie Schmelzer says it's just the same member. but at the same time, the housing coordinator is kind of a different animal.
I think we can table the housing
Yeah.
coordinator thing for now. I've actually asked Commissioner Cribbins of Coos County, can we put that $25,000 in a lockbox till we are able to determine if, in fact, there's, some inner struggles at NWU, Neighbor Works Umpqua. I don't want to speak for Director Crockett. believe, though, that she's very interested, but like yourself, she doesn't want to spend a lot of time if it's not going to be productive. And, of course, we support that. So if they want to have a meeting and not necessarily include NWU right now, but, until we understand what we're dealing with here. And I really like your approach that we're going to have to solve our own problems. And so the sooner we get started, the better. I hope that helps everyone.
Yeah,
But as I said, Commissioner, my purpose for bringing this forward is so that we can get a committee that's functional. You can't have a committee that's just everybody going in different directions and we're herding cats again. We need to get some organization into the committee. And, Umpqua and the rest of the people can participate once the committee is established and we're moving in a direction and we're inviting those people to come and make the presentations and talk about what it is they have to offer the committee and the county. And then the county, the committee can go back to the Board of Commissioners and make recommendations. That's the way committees have always worked in the past. At least that was my experience when I was on the board. You had a committee, they did the work, they brought it back to the board made the decisions based on recommendations from the committee. And I just think we need to get the committee organized and moving forward, and certainly we can do the outreach to ask for help from a lot of different areas. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here.
Commissioner Pash?
I agree with you right now. I think it's better to get this thing moving sooner than later. Leaving Neighborhood Works Umpqua out right now, I'm okay with that. My thing is, and I don't mean this negatively, but you spoke of even when you were a commissioner, we had a housing committee and it didn't go anywhere. And I think the first thing that we would need to look at is why didn't it go anywhere, and not let's go down those avenues, but let's find the reasons why it didn't and make it work. Because like so many others, I don't want to waste my time, as I guess nobody does, to just make it look like we're doing something and we're really not. If people want to get down to work on this, I'll work.
I think one of the reasons that we haven't had so much success in the past with this type of commissioner, to be frank with you, is because we haven't had a strong committee. We haven't had a committee that was well organized and moving forward. Mm-hmm. The basis, we have to have a foundation in the committee, the organization itself, the committee. We've never had that. It's been made up of members that all had their own insight as to what they thought was in the best interest of the county, and a committee can't function like that. You have to have a common goal and a foundation, and that's what needs to take place now. The committee needs to meet and establish those goals and those foundations.
Thank you all.
Yeah, Council.
Oh, excuse me.
Well, thanks. So again, county staff is the one who kind of puts out the notice of the meetings and those kind of things. If it's a consensus of the board, I think you would direct Brad Rickert to direct staff to proceed with the initial meeting of the housing committee, notwithstanding Neighborhood Works Umpqua's, non-attendance. So if that's a consensus of the board, I think you'd give staff direction and just make sure that it's clear to staff that it's okay to start without Neighborhood Works Umpqua.
We'll put something else on his desk.
Well, that would be great, and I'm more than willing to assist any way I can. I know that Connie Hunter, Mary Rowe, there are a lot of people on this committee that are willing to step up and assist. I would suggest that maybe an email be sent out checking on availability for people, what works, when they're available. There again, the intent of having a meeting is not necessarily just to have the meeting, it's to make sure people can attend and participate in the process.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
George.
Thank you, Commissioner Rhodes. Gordon Clay. What's that?
Can I just say something?
Oh, of course.
I don't want to
Absolutely.
take too much time, but Connie Hunter, South Curry County. Just wanted to mention that some of the things that have been hurdles at the state level on development at the local level are being removed. And so that's a piece of the puzzle that we do have to look at. And I'll share some information and some insight on some of those being moved. But what I really appreciate, first of all, having a liaison, Commissioner Pash, that would be awesome. In addition to that, I think that we have to really understand that we have to do these things on our own. Whenever there's a 2-county or 3-county relationship, a regional goal is set, and the goals and objectives locally often get left behind because we're smaller. So one of the things that actually being moved out of the way has to do with the fact that now they're putting before the legislature an opportunity where we don't have to use the community action system, which our Oregon Coast Community Action System requires certain housing grants. You have to go through ORCA to get to the state. Well, they're going to remove that hurdle, and nonprofits can go directly and apply for grants at the state. That was one of the biggest hurdles. So I'm going to be quiet because I'm going to talk maybe more in a little bit about veterans. And so thank you all for all your energy, and George and Mary and everybody that's willing to come up here and say we want to get the job done, and the Board of Commissioners that wants us to get it done. That was missing in the past.
Thank you, Connie. I'll just have one quick comment while Gordon comes up, please. For 4 years, I worked really hard to build a good relationship with the Coos County Commissioners so that we wouldn't be behind the 8 ball and the smaller county. I have nothing but the greatest confidence, and that trust has really gone both ways, and that's all 3 of their commissioners up there. Thank you.
John, has the handout been passed out?
Yes.
Thank you very much. For the record, my name is Gordon Clay from Brookings, Oregon. February is Youth Leadership Month. Today's children are tomorrow's leaders. Will they be ready? Think of every young person as someone who possesses leadership potential. Not everyone feels comfortable leading a meeting or speaking at an event, but they may be able to talk to a teacher about a project, or draft a letter to the school or a local newspaper, or volunteer for a local organization or community service. The National Service Organization has found that more hours a person volunteers in a year, the more likely they are to stay mentally, emotionally, and physically fit. It builds self-confidence, can fight depression, and expands their social network when many students are looking for ways to build resilience during this pandemic. Volunteering is beneficial to you as it is to the causes you care most about. Here are some reasons to volunteer, and I'm speaking to children right now because that's what this is. Volunteering is a great way to get work experience. Finding something you like to do for a living, or discover what you would not want to do. Meet people who can give you guidance and possibly help you find a paid job later on. Employers and college admissions advisors will be impressed that you took the initiative to learn new things. Best of all, you will be taking action to promote what you think is important and help someone else along the way. Volunteering is good for your mental and physical health. I've done that. While leadership skills can come naturally, children learn lessons along the way that significantly impact them later in life. The right words at the right time can make a difference. Here are great tips to help instill the right skills in the future leaders in your life. Set a good example, please. Encourage team activities. Emphasize perseverance. Build negotiating skills. Hone decision-making abilities. Practice confident communication. Encourage work. A lemonade stand, babysitting, mowing a neighborhood lawn. Enroll in a summer camp. Have a family game night. Teach project planning skills. Encourage reading for fun. Reward optimistic thinking. Allow them to make mistakes. Avoid jumping in. And find a trusted friend or family member to be a mentor. Each of these suggestions will not only create better leaders, but can help children perform better in school, and develop better personal relationships throughout life. Check out zeroattempts.org/youth-volunteers.html for some great ideas to raise happier and healthier students during this pandemic and in life in general. To the community, if you have an opportunity for a youth volunteer, let your school district know. We need to get these kids involved. Thank you. And I'll take this down, but I wanted to be sure you saw it.
Are you taking it back with you?
Well, I'm going to take it over to the school.
Okay.
I was hoping to have a student here today, but it didn't happen.
Connie Hunter, you're back up. Thanks so much, Gordon.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Before I get started talking about veterans, I want to just respond to your comment. That when I was talking about the relationships with coups, that was BC, before court.
Oh.
So that timeline.
Well, I don't want to take that kind of credit, but I was
No, but
actually
what I'm
came
saying
in
is it's
anticipating
improved.
that there would be
Sorry.
difficulties, and
Yes.
and I just haven't found that. And they're an exceptional board. But thank you, Connie.
So today there's going to be a presentation about the proclamation, and David Lahan, who's on our Curry County Suicide Awareness and Prevention Council Veterans Task Group, is here today, and Gordon is our chair, and vice chair, and emeritus, so he was our original founding director of that group. And I wanted to also introduce two more of our task group members. We have Lauren Farmer, who's a veteran who is post 9/11 combat medic, and he had a training at Gold Beach to help give inoculations of the vaccine. So he comes with a lot of experience, a great big heart, and a brain that keeps me thinking and giving me good information. And his wonderful son, Jason, who one of the first things that he ever said to me was he's been going to VA hospitals and VA appointments since he was 6 years old. So he knows the system. He's looking to be a part of the peer support specialist group. We're going to try and have 10 peer support specialists trained, 8 veterans and 2 family members. I think we hoodwinked maybe somebody in the room to participate in that, but I did get a call and had a good conversation with Emily Watson, who is the Oregon Health Authority liaison, behavioral health side of things for veterans. And she said, if you want to develop a training locally, one-on-one, where you actually build your own curriculum, we will pay for it. And so I reached out to Brandy Hemsley, who's over the office, she's the director over the Office of Consumer Activities Behavioral Health Team, so all things peers. She said, I asked her, I said, would you be interested? She said, oh yes, we'd like to help you put that together. And I'll bring in the guy who's the coordinator for the workforce development piece of the puzzle for peer support. And so it looks like we're going to have a model program called The Power of 10 that might be really profound. So wish us luck, and we'll get more information. And Gordon, as always, thank you for your support and encouragement along the way.
Gordon is running a meeting tonight from 5:30 to 7:30.
Actually, Katrina Upton is our chair now.
Okay.
She represents the tribe, Tullawa Bending Nation. So she's now our leader, and but I'm still there and doing work and all that kind of stuff.
And
Leadership were noted for our days.
and welcome Farmer Brothers, right?
Father and son.
Connie, you want to step back up to the mic, please?
Well, no, it's okay. She tipped over her cup, so.
Oh, do you need me to back up here?
No.
No, we're covered for now. Thank you again.
Okay.
Talk to you tonight with the committee. Then we have Deborah Salzman.
Thank you, Commissioners and the Board. I am Deborah Salzman. I'm here with Don Bemis. We're with Reefs Across America. And I'm here to present from Reefs Across America a certificate of appreciation to Commissioner Court Boyce for being ceremonial speaker. This award is for service on December 19th, 2020. So I'd like to present this to you.
Wow. Okay. I did not know a thing about this, everyone. Thank you very much.
Just trying to hand it to you.
It has your name on it, you get to keep it.
Well, you've done a couple presentations, Reefs Across America, and then that drizzly day with the guns, the salute, the other speakers there, the tribute to those that have fallen. I'm at a loss of words. It was just an incredible honor, and I think maybe there's 100 people there, and I think you'll do even better than that next year, and just a tremendous privilege. Thank you for that recognition, which I do not deserve compared to the sacrifices that you and others have made. Thank you so much.
We're going to be starting next month, doing fundraising next month for this year's ceremony.
Okay. If you haven't been to oh goodness, why am I drawing a blank? But it's a beautiful cemetery, the east side of Brookings, up Old County Road. It's just...
7th Street.
What's that?
7th Street?
7th Street, thank you.
At the end of 7th.
It's just a beautiful, beautiful area, and yeah, Oceanside Diner, come through with food again. That was great. Okay, so next on the agenda is the Veterans Proclamation honoring David Lahan. Huh? Yeah, come on up. David, while you're coming up, every time I read these stories and then I realize I get an opportunity to read them yeah, right to the microphone, to read them in honoring those that served and went through combat, and your story is no different, no less intriguing, no less scary than any other stories. I think you're our 7th veteran that we've been able to honor. We're trying to do one a month. And Curry County has a lot of distinguished veterans. Very few of them think they're distinguished. They just think they're tough patriots, and I couldn't agree more. And it's just an incredible privilege to have you here today. And the commissioners have been very supportive in this program, and I hope we can keep up with it. I believe we can, and it's just back to your story. That's what's important right now. Thank you. So, welcome, and story in your words. My story, Vietnam, 1970 to 1971. I was a combat engineer in the military. While I was in Vietnam, I was walking point. I could talk about that a little bit. I've read about that a lot. Those are the guys that go out ahead, usually 100 meters or so, and they're looking for mines. We had been dropped by helicopter into an area between the main road and a fire base that was being shut down. It was the first and last time that I saw elephant grass. You got to picture this. The first person jumped out. We were about 18 inches from the top of the grass and disappeared into the greenery. Yeah, 7-foot-high grass. I was next, approximately 15 feet from the ground. When I landed, I looked up, and it was so thick I couldn't even see the chopper. The grass was so thick you couldn't see 2 feet in front of you. We were about 30 yards from our campsite for the night. The infantry was waiting for us as they were supposed to be our security for the night and the mine sweep in the morning. It was the first and only time that I worked with a mine dog. It was worthless. We wore out our full rucksacks, which is a backpack, and it was one of the hottest days that I've ever experienced. We started the mine sweep with me walking the point, and the infantry on both sides of our team. One of the infantrymen crawled into the shady spot where he found a booby trap next to his head. We blew it up. Then we continued the mine sweep until I stopped and turned to my friend. I was shaking badly. Love that honesty. And I told him that I felt that a mine was somewhere near me. He then came over by me and swept the ground in my area. He found a mine about 12 inches from my feet. Altogether, we found 7 mines that day and lived through it. The infantry found 2 more, unfortunately one the hard way. There was a fence coming together at the road and 4 soldiers near where the fence interconnected. The road had a bunch of bamboo and brushes crisscrossing it and blocking the way through. I turned and asked the mine dog handler what the 4 soldiers were doing up there. About the same time, one of them reached up and pulled on blocked debris, and it exploded. I always carried a 100-yard piece of rope with a grappling hook attached to the end. We pulled the 4 of them back to us. All were hurt badly, and 3 of them eventually died. We called for a medevac chopper as we were only a half hour or less flying time from the main base, Cho Lai. After an hour with no help, another patrol stopped and dropped their group off and took our wounded to the hospital. Then they came back and picked up their people and left. It was around another half hour when our chopper came to pick up the wounded troops. My squad leader told me that I didn't want to walk point anymore, that he would not have to. I told him I would, so we continued and finished the mine sweep. Volunteer. A few months later, I was called in front of my company. I didn't know why, and I was awarded the Bronze Star for the mine sweep. I thought that I didn't deserve the award, as I was only doing my job. I was a sergeant by then. When I retired from the military, I had reached the rank of Staff Sergeant, William P. Lahan. Did you ever have to do any of that work at night?
Yes.
Yeah. Dark. Dark as could be. Love your hat.
My brother-in-law sent it to me.
Oh. Mr. Pash?
You were in Chulai, huh?
Yes.
My oldest brother Greg was chopper pilot in Chulai for 18 months.
He might have flew me.
He was there in 67 and 68.
No, I was his replacement.
Auto-rotated 6 times in the jungle. Yeah, so you know what that is.
I spent a little bit there.
Yeah, but...
One time we were walking along the hill, and if we had gone another 6 feet, we'd have been in Cambodia.
Amazing stories from over there that we don't talk about much.
Thank you, sir.
Now, if once the court asked me to do it, I wouldn't even done that.
Yeah. But I remember, I never went live over there. I went in right when Nixon started the pullout, but my brothers would come home and they never talked about what happened in Vietnam.
I don't talk about it very often.
And I saw a documentary, I think it was Friday night or Saturday night on TV, and it was the Vietnam War, a lot of the facts of the Vietnam War, and World War II veterans on average had combat situations 12 days a month. Vietnam veterans had combat situations 23 days a month.
If not more.
They actually drew their weapons 23 days a month.
As long as you don't bite. Yeah, go ahead. It's up to them.
Certainly.
No, you stay up here because we're going to give you a proper silhouette. So you said combat engineer, right?
Yeah.
You know what they say about combat engineers, don't you? The reason they exist is because infantry needs heroes too.
Dave, anything else you want to say?
No.
Thanks for being here today. Thanks for coming down from Port Orford.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Switch it out with that one. Toss that one back up there.
So, Board, I'm going to read off the consent agenda real quick. It's approved as no amendments, actually, correct?
No.
You promised no. Consent agenda, item A, approved minutes of January 22nd, 21 emergency meeting, Sheriff's Office private timber contract renewals. Thank you all. Reappoint 2 members of the Curry County Transit Advisory Committee, addendum to the IT for Information Technology Service Agreement, adopt a position description for a new facilities maintenance worker administrative assistant. Item F, promotion of an employee. Item G, new hire of an employee. Item H, adopt a position description for an existing position, appraiser 2. Item 6I, reclassification of an employee. Item 6J, adopt a position description for an existing position, senior accounting specialist. K, FTE full-time equivalent, change of an employee. And item 6L, adopt a position description for an existing position, appraiser, analyst 2. So we are at 7A.
Need a motion. I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as read.
I second it.
Discussion. I thought we approved that when we did the whole agenda.
No.
Did we change something on that?
That was just
No, but we
approving.
still have to read it and approve it.
You only approved the agenda, you didn't approve any items on the agenda.
Okay, but we don't always individually read the consent agenda. We
I
should,
always-
though.
Yes, I
You
always
do, and then you vote on it as a slate.
Okay?
Where have you been?
I just, once you approve the agenda, 4 years and I haven't caught on.
Well, our meetings would be awful short if approving the agenda was approving the items on the agenda.
Okay. As amended, if amended, or changes. No, well, yeah.
Let it go.
Amendment approval of the agenda.
So you have a motion and a second, sir.
Discussion done. Staff Jesuit, please.
Commissioner Pash,
Aye.
Commissioner Herzog,
Yes.
Vice Chair Herzog, Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
So item 7A, discussion action items, Road Department request for board review and comment of Curry County policy with Road Department, not maintaining private storm drains and ditches outside of the county right-of-way. Roadmaster Christensen, welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
What's up, man?
Road Department, we receive a lot of drainage complaints and, what's public, what's private, and folks who really don't like our answers. And currently, the Road Department works off the OARs, Oregon Revised Statutes, and also a letter from a previous district attorney of Curry County, Frank Strain, breaking down the Oregon state law. And so what I'd like to do is develop our own Curry County ordinances and be more clear about what we take care of and what we abate, and also what new subdivisions have to do to put their drainage in, and just break it all down, and so that way we have something to work with that is easier to explain to the public. So,
Mr. Pash?
You considering have a workshop on it, you think? And get it down, or just meet with maybe Council Huddle?
I'm not sure what the process to make our own Curry County ordinances, but whatever that process is, I would like to start that.
Go ahead, Council Huddle.
Thank you. So, Rich, when I saw this, I thought it was more or less, I thought it came out of, so we have our roads, and then our roads have the ditches, and then the ditches drain water off the roads, and sometimes the water goes, as in that memo, to where it normally and naturally goes, and sometimes that's onto private property, and those private property, because it's a natural flow of water, they have to divert it from their own property. And recently there was a case where a private property owner was not maintaining their ditches, so it backed up on the private property. As far as, and so the resident of the property asked us if we could do anything, and we said, well, really, this is, your own ditches. Are you trying to, and so I think the memo explains pretty clearly why it's not our responsibility to clear the private ditches, but did we want to, and then also if those private ditches then are not maintained and cause a backup on ours, we could go in and fix them and charge them for it or something. But what kind of ordinance are you looking for, Rich, do you think?
I'm kind of looking for that the county only owns and maintains what's in the county right-of-way on county property or a county storm drain easement. It's real clear, and everything outside of that belongs to someone else, and that's the property owner. And also what the responsibilities are of the property owner, and if they develop, what the responsibilities of that are as well. And there's a process. You know, we recently just had a subdivision go in, and there was problems there. We have old subdivisions that are existing. There's problems there. We have ditches going across ranches. There's problems there, and pipes going through people's backyards, and you know, across the port. You know, there's a lot of problems down at the port, and they're like saying, "No, well, this is a county responsibility." I'm like, "No, this isn't a county responsibility." And so basically, we were working off that DA letter from 1982 and the OARs, and I was just thinking of having our own ordinances that were specific to us, that like what we did as like City of Brookings type thing, and we would put them in our standards and specifications, and they'd be more handy to everybody that needed them, whether it was David Fortman or our code enforcement, and they'd be readily accessible maybe online.
Okay, so you're looking for board direction to dedicate resources to that effort then?
Correct.
Okay, is that the will of the board? That?
It's my will, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we need a workshop right now. That's my initial thought.
No.
Okay. This 3.5 full pages, it covers us pretty good, I think. It goes back to, you said Frank Strain, Deputy District Attorney.
Yeah.
I think you meant Roadmaster.
Well, he wrote the, Frank Strain was the previous roadmaster years ago. Sorry, it was,
I'm giving you a bad time there a little
Nicholson.
bit.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Okay. That goes back, to the 80s, I think.
Yeah.
And then Rich Michelson was Deputy District Attorney, ended up becoming Circuit Court Judge all through the 90s. And, early 2000. Go ahead.
Well, I think the other part, before we get this ordinance in place, I think that part of this is a communication to the board because, we're getting communication from citizens about water backing up on their property, and they're talking to us like we can do something about it. And as you can see from that memo, it's technically not our legal responsibility. So what could happen is, in between the time we get this ordinance together and now, people could be talking to us and we'd say sorry, and then sometimes they come to you all. So it's just kind of, I think there's just communication for the most part as well to keep you guys abreast of a situation that we're seeing in this really wet time we're having. Is that pretty fair
Yes.
as well? Okay.
Can I ask, go ahead. Roadmaster Christensen, can I ask, is this something that's like one a month or one a year? It's probably not that serious right now, I don't think.
Well, like in the last month, we've probably had, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
Because we've had a lot of rain. And some of these are just every year from the same people. And a lot of these problems I'm going to be addressing in a future stormwater capital improvement plan and trying to resolve some of these things. I think some of them can be resolved and maybe come into county ownership. But it's seasonal.
Okay.
And, and I also want to be proactive and contact people in the summer. Hey, you need to clean your ditch. If there's a ditch that's always having a problem, I want to be proactive and send them, our ordinance, you got to clean your ditch and maintain your stuff. Or if your pipe's failing and then you have to, replace your pipe and you have to fix your infrastructure just like we do.
Mr. Herzog?
Part of that ordinance, would that be when you contact folks and say, you got to clean your ditch, rain's coming? If they don't, could we do it and then bill them, or is that?
I believe so. Or we could hire a contractor.
I think there'd have to be some risk to our system, before. Otherwise, we could offer it perhaps as a service where, a voluntary basis. So in other words, hey, you need to get your ditches clean, and they say, well, will you do it? And we'd say, 99.99 or something like that.
So I hear the board saying we're not wanting to ignore or disregard their inquiries or concerns, and you've got a long-term plan, and this paragraph of the last page, I think, is a good benefit, even though it was written 30 years ago. Yeah,
Okay.
Commissioner Pash?
I think, though, I think we were going to ask council to maybe put some,
Yes, I will work with Rich. You mentioned the city of Brookings has an ordinance,
Right.
and so
And maybe-
then we'd probably bring that back to you as another communication point or even for adoption. So,
Okay.
and if that happens in the next 60 days, I'll be there, and otherwise we'll.
Council huddle.
Yeah.
Is that something you can ask support staff to help you with?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
We'll help on this end
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And we'll work with the building department and the planning department as
Thanks.
well. Okay,
Hey,
thank you.
very good.
Boy,
Item 7B, ordinance amending Curry County Code Article 6, Division 12, adopting noise standards, exceptions, and penalties. First reading, John Huddle, County Council, and Dave Fortman, Code Enforcement Officer.
So what you have here, if you recall, we had some people come and talk, and this is actually something that's been in the works for a while. And so what we have is a draft noise ordinance. And so what you can see is it has categories of things that are unreasonable noises, and then it has some proposed different types of noises can be made at different hours of the day and cannot be made at all during other hours of the day. But what we had some blanks on were, because you remember even Judge Beeman came and talked, and she said, yeah, you need time and distances and decibels. You need things that could be measured. I believe Officer Fortman has got a decibel meter reader. You say, well, how do you measure decibels? He's got that. And what we were, and then we have some blanks to be filled in where the board says, because it says these, if you go down in there, it says you can't have something that can be heard over here at blank decibels. And so we wanted you guys to hear from Dave about decibels, and then we could make some noise, and he could use his reader, and you could see in person, what you were telling people they could and couldn't do. So I'll turn it over to Dave. He's got everything else you need on this, I think.
sure, yep. You want one?
I wonder if we can,
JJ?
I'm going to try to get this on the overhead. Okay.
Well, while you're doing that, I'd like to start with a couple comments. Code enforcement currently enforces laws about barking dogs. And let me tell you, people get very, very, very angry at both sides because it's a very controversial issue. We're in a community and a county that's gone from rural and forestry and agricultural to harbor and neighbors and close bys, and one size doesn't kind of fit all type thing here. A couple of people called me with concerns or brought up concerns. Like I said, barking dogs is already in here. Construction for the board to consider, and that on that is on the second page of the proposed ordinance. They say during the summer that they start their construction before 7 a.m. because they're trying to get all their businesses done. So people were objecting if the board adopted a 7 a.m. construction ordinance. But if you don't adopt some reasonable time, you're going to have the city folks that are in the community upset at us too. Another phone call that I got in here was from the forestry industry. And while the ordinance that Council Huddle put together has an exemption for forestry, what they were complaining about is that the forest trucks are taken home. And the pattern is a truck driver starts his truck at 4 o'clock in the morning, he's got to air up his brakes and warm it up, and he goes in and, you know, where's the limit here? Where's the noise things? So when I saw that, and this is after talking to Council Huddle, one of the other county ordinances talks about hearing the noise from inside the complaining dwelling. And I think that's either should be added to the ordinance or understood, because I think that makes it more realistic. As I started off with barking dogs experience I've been dealing with in the last year, it's an ordinance that people are very fragile about. If you got a barking dog, 2 minutes of that dog barking is going to bother you. And constantly we go out and sit there and say, like during the day, the dog barked at us for 5 minutes, that's the dog's job. Oh, well, and we walk away. And some people get angry. What we worked out with the DA and the court on barking is going after the repetitive problems or the intentional problems. So pattern after other counties, we have a log that when a complainant comes to us with a complaint about barking dogs, or in this case, other noises, we'd hand them a log and say, keep a log for 10 days and show this, because code enforcement's not going to come out at 3 o'clock in the morning to listen to your, whatever the situation is. The chart, it doesn't show up very well. Right now, this meeting with the amplified system is running between about 45 and 51 decibels. Pretty reasonable. Some ordinances, like Portland's ordinance, has an actual X number of decibels at X time of day per type of residence.
You're amazing.
I think that's way overkill. I think that what the board did in generations ago in Article 10 of making this enforcement subjective, not objective. In other words, if somebody makes a complaint and we hear a noise, we got to write a citation. I think we've approached the whole code enforcement as being subjective. What's going on in the whole balance of things? It's worked, except that, again, I anticipate that there may be some complaints back to the commissioner saying, why isn't that code enforcement writing a ticket to this person? And it's a subjective thing that, or the person's not cooperating, keeping the log, and constantly yells at me saying, well, the dog barked at 3 in the morning, why didn't you come up here? You know, and listen to it. So this is an ordinance that isn't going to make everybody happy. But I think that Council Huddle crafted a lot after Josephine County and other counties, and I think it gives us the tools. And then what I'm looking for is your enforcement section is, what's the board's pleasure here? If the ordinance is in there, how do you want it enforced? You know, type thing. What's the limits to it?
Mr. Pash?
I think when we started this conversation, the intent of, my intent was that we don't have too much policing. Again, a lot of this is subjective. It has to be up to the person that's there, the enforcement official that's there, to listen to understand this dog has been a problem, or, you know, this guy's always playing his music too loud at 11 o'clock at night. Every Friday he does this. And it's a subjective thing that if you come and warn him once, like we said in prior meetings, you can cite him, but you don't necessarily cite him. You say, knock it off. I don't want to come back. If you do, then you can cite him. If he still doesn't stop it, at least this ordinance gives us the power then to have a police action against him if you decide to do that. So I think this should be a very subjective thing, in my opinion, to any code enforcement officer that goes out on that call and understands the situation and the surroundings. Oop, I'm sorry.
I agree, and I think most of the community, because we were funneling these calls even before there was a law, and I think most of the community is not going to call up and say, there's a party on Friday night, and, you know, I want you to come down and shut it down. The woman that came before the board has a chronic problem, and I think this ordinance gives us the tool to deal with it, as you said, Commissioner, as a chronic issue. And trying to do education and dealing with a small percentage of incidents where they're totally repetitive or intentional noise, and I think that's what she was more facing, was an intentional violation. We'll try education or whatever the board prescribes.
Well, that would be my intent. Counsel?
Thanks. So
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Jeez, I'm sorry.
Certainly.
Page 5, you've got the text of the ordinance. It's on item 7B. And so it basically says it's unlawful to make a unreasonable noise disturbance. And then it says factors to determine. And this is where I think Commissioner Pash, okay.
Boy, it's contagious, isn't it?
Did we have a break and everyone came back? So 7B, page 5, and it says factors to determine whether it's unreasonable include but aren't limited to. It says the volume, the distance from the source, the hour of the day, the duration or repeated nature. So a lot of these, Commissioner Pash, I think embody some of the things you're talking about there, whether it's plainly audible within a noise-sensitive unit. And we describe a noise-sensitive unit to really be, any portion of a vehicle, church, daycare, hospital, place used for overnight accommodations, a home, apartments, those kind of things. So really it's houses plus is a noise-sensitive unit. And then density of the habitation area. So just all these things. And then, so that's the general prohibition. And then we said specifically the following will be what's called the prima facie case, meaning as long as, if we've got these, then we can write you a cite and you have to, then the burden's on you to defend yourself. So if you ever sound a horn when it's not used the right way, in other words, and there's even a law against that on the vehicle code. You can't honk your horn unless you're using it for an emergency. I think I probably have violated that a couple times. And then radios, phonographs. So then this is where we're asking, these are particulars where if someone, sound reproducing equipment, a bullhorn or whatever, where if you're using it and it's audible that in a noise sensitive unit, so somebody else's residence plus, that's not the source of the sound. And then we mentioned, those things. But what we're asking is, should we even put a decibel unit here? Or if you don't think we need the decibel, we just say that is audible within, boom, and then we just leave it up to those other factors. That's what we're looking for the board to do. And then the hours, you heard from Officer Fortman, yelling and shouting and hooting and whistling, singing, etc., between the hours of 8 p.m. and 7 a.m., and then lawnmowers and garden tools, this kind of residential use from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then construction, we're saying you can't use, demolition or heavy equipment from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. And, I'm not aware that contractors start out with the heavy stuff prior to 7 a.m., but I'm not a contractor, so maybe they do. Anyway, so those are really some of we're just looking for direction. This is the first reading. If you want us to change some things, we'll bring it back for the second reading, but we'd ask for approval with any input and bring it back for a second reading.
If you...
Go ahead.
Sorry. If you want to, for the purpose of this, put in a decibel thing, okay. And I was only intending to use a decibel if we end up in court to be able to say, it's not my bad hearing, it's really this is what I saw.
And you could use the decibel setting if you want to for your record.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't be to constitute the violation. It's your purview to constitute the violation. Oh, and by the way, the decibel level was this.
Excuse me, did I? Go ahead.
No, Dave and I Officer Portman and I are just looking for direction to bring you back the final ordinance for the second reading.
I was unaware. Do you have the technology to measure decibels?
Right in the sand, probably.
Oh, I missed that somehow. That's even better news. This is really good work here. I know it's basic. We get that on our website. Our first job, and I think you've communicated this, Commissioner Pash, is kind of public awareness. Is back to what we teach our kids, what the respect is for neighbors, just to be aware, not to have an attitude like, what are you going to do? This is our first reading. I think there's been some really good input in this. I wouldn't You ask Council Huddle if we want to make any changes. I don't, or additions. I don't have anything. I'm encouraged.
What?
Curry County is a peaceful place. Coexistence.
No, I think the change that I would suggest to the board is to remove the decimal thing as a mandatory thing and make that the purview of the code enforcement. And if the code enforcement person chooses to add that to his record, then he can do that.
That's his call.
Does the board have any issues with the time on, we're asking people to not mow their lawns with an electric or a power mower after 8 p.m. That may, and then of course, again, that's just up to the neighbors to complain. We're not going to, I don't think Dave's going to be driving down the street, jumping out of his.
The only thing I could say is I've done a lot of construction and I don't have the issue of a neighbor, but sometimes you get past 5 o'clock and you just got to do something. So I think 5 might be a little early. Maybe 6 might be a better number on that. I don't know how the board feels, but that's how I would think. Because especially in the summertime, it's beautiful outside. You want to work a little bit.
Stays light longer, yeah.
Director Rickard?
Just my 2 cents, but those are some of my thoughts too. Summertime, it stays late, past 8 o'clock, you're out mowing your lawn, or somebody who's coming home from a regular job to work on their home past 5 o'clock.
How about like 1 hour before sunset?
There you go. That sounds good.
And that means you can do it till 9 o'clock in the late days of June.
How are you with that?
Commissioner Herzog?
I'm great with that.
I think, in Brookings, it's 8 p.m. to 8 a.m.
I think it is 7 a.m. I know Medford is incredibly strict about don't fire up your skill saw until before 7.
I think it's 8 in Brookings.
I don't know. It could be. We had different. Believe it or not, they're
different.
We looked at some of these, and they're all slightly different. So we just came up with one only for discussion. Commissioner Pash, I guess.
Commissioner Pash?
I don't think I would want anybody to be firing up a saw or anything before 7 a.m. I mean, 7 a.m.
I think that's reasonable.
Number.
People need to get to work, but...
And even if you got to be to work at 8, you're usually up by 7:15 anyway, so that's reasonable. But in the evening hours, I think that hour before sunset sounds like a good thing. To me, that's my thought.
All right. Don't go ahead. Yeah.
CEO Fortman?
Just, also, there's one other provision in this that allows the county director of operations to issue a permit, conditional use permit for special events. So, like the Pirate Festival is like a mile and a half from my house, and I hear it all weekend long. Oh, well.
But you know it's coming, though.
You know it's coming. It's a special event. It would be controlled by a county official.
If I could, it's actually more broad than special events. It says any person who is planning to operate a sound source which may violate any provision of this chapter can ask for a permit. So even if a guy had a construction job, he's building a hospital and we had to get it done, or, whatever it is, but they could come and apply for those as well. So it would allow anybody an out if they have they'd have to establish a need and things like that.
And Caitlin has a question. Caitlin? Did you have a question, Caitlin?
Oh, no, I was just...
Yeah, you have to come up to the microphone.
Sorry, it was
Pull the
Caitlin
mic
Coleman.
down, please, miss. The other one, thank you.
Sorry, I just had a comment. You guys were talking about mowing lawns and things like that in the summer and late, and being a firefighter's wife, there are a lot of restrictions that come on some of those noise-making things based on time of day and stuff for a lot of the year anyway, and so I know that a lot of this will fall under CFPA and the city, and so some good discussion may happen there as well.
Good, thank you.
So some of those other rules may just solve our problem for us. If you can't use your chainsaw during sparky time, sure, okay.
So we have a direction here and everybody's okay.
I'm just surprised Dave barking dog isn't on here.
How do you measure a Chihuahua versus a St. Bernard?
It's actually worse than
My
Chihuahua.
dog, when the thunder went off last night, my deaf
Oh,
dog
my
woke up and
gosh.
jumped up.
I think all dogs do that.
Did hit an 85.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. We'll bring this back for a second reading. So is there a motion to approve this and bring it back for a second reading as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, board. Discussion. Call for the question.
Commissioner Pash.
All right.
Vice Chair Herzog.
Yes.
Chair Boyce.
Yes.
Motion carried unanimously.
Okay, item 7C, discussion about burning in Curry County and starting a coordinated partnership with surrounding fire districts. Commissioner Pash, before you start, we're going to need to take a break about 2:35, and so if you don't mind starting, and we'll come back, whatever's convenient.
Sure. It may only take 10 minutes, depending on how much discussion we have, but a week or so ago, we had Reg Williams behind Dr. Williams' property there, that whole mountainside back there. They have logged that in the last 3 months, and I actually know the logger that logged it. And they built their slash piles, and it was his understanding that they were going to burn the slash piles. I think there were 11 slash piles, and they were huge. His understanding was they were going to light 2 or 3 of them at a time and let them burn out, and then light the next one. A week ago, Friday, someone went up there and lit them all. And I mean, you're talking 80, 100-foot flames coming off these things. And I already see everybody out there nodding their heads. Within 30 minutes, the entire valley had filled with smoke. I was called by people in downtown Gold Beach that said that they were up on our street here, and they couldn't see the airport. That's how thick the smoke was. I slept in my house that night under oxygen. That's how bad it was in my house. So the next morning, I called Gold Beach Fire Chief Krieger, and him and I had a long conversation about it. And what he recommends to do is let's set a workshop up on this and start the discussion. We need to have some kind of, I hate to say rules because I hate too much government. I hate government when it gets telling you what to do and what not to do, but there has to be some kind of controls over how much you can burn at once, how many cubic feet or however they measure that. But what happened on that evening, and he says it happens more often than people know, I can imagine with my lung issues, I can imagine some of the super seniors out there, the issues that they had. I don't know if our hospital had anyone check in because of the amount of smoke, but it was, and Saturday, it continued. Saturday, the winds changed and it blew in, and then about sunset, the winds changed and came right back up the river again. And we had it again Saturday night, but it wasn't as bad as it was Friday night. Council Huddle?
If I could, I've got some...
No, I wasn't, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Sorry.
We'll come back. Go ahead. We'll come back to you.
I've got some slash piles on my property, and I'm in CFPA, and I had to meet with the CFPA forester to get an approved plan to do the burn, and they talk about all those kind of things you're talking about. So I think having one of the guys from CFPA come in and talk about what, there may be some government on it already, and that may be, anyway, that's the only input I have for you, Commissioner.
So with that, there were permits issued for this. They did exactly that. That's what I'm saying. I talked to the logger, and he said, no, we did everything correctly. They don't know how they all got lit, but somebody went, that's what he said. He said someone went up and lit them all, and he said they were only supposed to light a group of them. So the conversation with Chief Krieger was that, and then also getting all the fire districts together to come up with a unified thing on some other issues he has, and then possibly talking about the consolidation of a couple of districts to at least acknowledge each other more, to work together. So we talked about possibly having a workshop and have him basically head up the workshop with some of the fire districts in the county, maybe all of the fire districts in the county, and with the possibility, I hate to use the word district consolidation because I might get hung on the cross tomorrow for that. But
no, you're not. That's
but there are conversations that some people would like to have in the county about consolidating some of the fire districts, at least to the point that they can acknowledge each other and work better together and share their equipment, so that Chetco doesn't need a waterer because another district has that, so they don't need to spend the money on that machine because somebody else has it and they're willing to share that machinery with each other. So those are the kind of conversations I think Mr. Krieger wants to have. So I told him I would talk to the board and see if we couldn't possibly have set up a workshop time in the next couple of months. And then also we would talk about the burning, the schedules of burning, how it's to be done, and just make sure that we're all the fire districts are on the same board with how they do it and why they do it, and the health and safety of the county.
Quick question. Do you know how many acres were harvested there, roughly?
I don't know because I didn't walk down the backside. What I could see looked like probably 40 or 50 acres, but I think there was that much again or more down the backside of that mountain, so.
Yeah, the reason I ask is they have a window, well, you know, they have just right at 3 years for, to be legal on their reforestation. So they don't get the piles burned, then, you know, they're really up against it. How long did the smoke last, roughly?
4 days.
Oh, it did 4 days.
Yeah.
And the winds didn't help.
Not to the fact that it bothered me, but we had a huge rain on the fourth day, and it put them out. So,
Cleaned it up.
you know, the biggest thing, like he said, is they needed to get them burned, and they were planning on getting them burned. But he said what he likes to do is 2 days before a big rain, he burns a third of them. Then he plans ahead for the next big rain,
Yeah.
and he burns them 2 days before the next big rain, and that way there he knows that, you know, he's got everything under control. He said, I don't know how it happened or why, but for some reason, somebody went up and lit them all up.
You said 9 piles.
No, it was 11 piles.
11, excuse me, you did say 11, I'm sorry.
And they were as big as this room or bigger. I mean, they were huge.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff from, this probably hadn't been logged 40 years there. On the fire, don't, I'm encouraging you here, not discouraging you, but don't apologize for trying to get the small districts together. I've been talking to Tyson about that for a long time. I got a huge file. I think it makes a lot of common sense, common ground for reasons you defined, and that he's been kind of hopeful on for a long time. And we're hoping that, you know, it'll evolve into three battalions for the entire county. Would be north, central, and south, of course. And as you know, we have, 14, counting the cities, 14 or 15 rural fire departments. And anything we can do to help them in the interest of fire awareness and prevention and recovery, all the above, that would be, and yeah, I've been working with him on that quite a while, so I'm glad to have you on board on that, and I would even give you the file if you have the time and the interest, because I think there's some real merit in getting that done. Sooner the better. Go ahead. And a workshop will accelerate that, I believe.
I think letting him take the ball on that and building what we're going to do from here forward is for me, the best way to go. Like I say, we talked at length the other day, and he's got a lot of good information in his head. Another issue that fire departments are starting to have, volunteer fire departments, is staffing. These new, the new generations aren't volunteering. They're a limited resource. So, getting this education out and consolidating might actually help to staff those better. So if I could, I don't know, maybe ask Mr. Rickert to look for a date and within maybe 30 days, within a month, to get a workshop together where we could find an hour of time, hour and a half of time to talk about this. I don't know. The board think maybe an hour, hour and a half if we got.
As long as CFPA is involved, I'd be all for it. And yeah, oh, definitely.
Yeah.
We'd have to coordinate with him too, and then he'll coordinate with the other districts.
It's no secret. I'm as Jim Watson retires, I'm really pushing for Tyson to be our Curry Fire Chief. So we can take it. If there's anything else, board, Commissioner Herzog.
Oh, I need a break.
10 minutes. Be back here. Actually, please be back here a little before 2:45, if you would. So less than 10 minutes. Thank you, board.
and see. Never having to choose between digging in or looking out. Here, you can go where the spirit or the wind moves you. To the tops of the trees, along secluded beaches, or into more wild and scenic rivers than anywhere else in the western United States. We're the closest place to the sunset while still keeping your feet dry, and a destination where anyone can begin. We share more than we keep, so you can see more than you imagined. This is a place you have to touch, hold, and feel to believe. The entire shoreline of the West Coast's best coast is open to you, and playgrounds made of forests are waiting for you. Escape to Curry County and don't leave anything out.
If yours is the next big idea, and you need the right place to fine-tune it, build it, launch it, if you're only your best when you can play more than you work, if inspiration comes from the outside, you belong in Curry County. The westernmost point of the land you love, and the edge between familiar and uncharted. Break the pattern. Be where the airports are as close as the beaches, and industry and recreation never cease to amaze. Dock, dive, and dine in a single day, and never lose your connection. This is the threshold of the West. Live where you can do you, and do it well, at the farthest point from ordinary. Curry County, living on the edge.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Wildfire, as everyone knows, has emerged as one of the big major issues affecting Oregon and, for that matter, all western states. A real actionable response that's including how do we fight fire, actively managing our forest,